The War Council chamber fell silent when the hologram flickered to static. High Commander Relos stood frozen, his gray scales tightening against his neck in a way that betrayed his carefully controlled composure. Around him, 12 of the Dominion's highest military leaders sat in curved seats of polished black stone, their yellow eyes fixed on the empty space where moments ago they had watched their greatest weapon simply stop. "Play it again," Relos commanded. The technician's claws trembled as he reset the recording. The hologram reformed, showing a vast creature moving through dense forest. The silence. 200 years of genetic engineering had created this perfect predator. It stood 3 meters tall on 4 powerful legs, its body covered in scales that shifted color to match any environment. Its head was flat and wide, housing a brain designed only for hunting, tracking, and killing. No eyes, it did not need them. It sensed heat, movement, electrical impulses from living hearts. Nothing could hide from it. Nothing could outrun it. Nothing could fight it. For 2 centuries, the silence had been deployed against species that refused to submit to the Dominion. It had never failed. Entire civilizations had been erased from existence by this single creature. Worlds that once held billions of living beings now sat empty, ready for Dominion colonization. And now it was gone. The signal terminated here, the technician said, highlighting a small blue planet on the star map. Target 7, a death world in an unexplored sector. We sent the silence to cleanse it before our colonization fleet arrives. A death world, one of the commanders leaned forward. What manner species lives there? Soft creatures. No natural armor, no venom, no claws worth mentioning. They lack telepathy, cannot regenerate, and their young take years to mature. By all measurements, they should have been eliminated within days. Relos studied the planet slowly rotating in the hologram. Blue oceans covered most of its surface. Green and brown land masses spread across its face. White clouds swirled in patterns that suggested violent weather systems. He had seen worlds like this before, harsh places where only the most brutal life could survive. "How long has the silence been silent?" he asked. 6 standard months, High Commander. 6 months. Relos felt something cold settle in his chest. In 200 years, the silence had never gone more than 3 days without transmitting. Its neural link to Dominion Command was constant, streaming data about its hunts, its kills, its progress. The creature did not think independently. It did not make choices. It was a weapon, nothing more. "Deploy a reconnaissance drone," Relos ordered. "Find our weapon." The drone took 2 weeks to reach Target 7. It descended through the planet's atmosphere, scanning for the silence's unique biological signature. The signal came from a mountainous region covered in white precipitation. Frozen water, the data indicated. Primitive. The drone adjusted its course and flew lower. What it found made no sense. The first image showed a small structure made of dead trees, a dwelling of some kind. Smoke rose from a stone chimney. Around it, the primitive creatures moved about their daily lives. They wore artificial skins to protect themselves from the cold. They were laughably fragile, these beings. Soft pink and brown bodies. Flat faces with small eyes. They walked on 2 legs, leaving their vulnerable midsections completely exposed. Easy prey. The drone circled wider, searching for the silence. The creature's signal was strong now, coming from a cluster of trees near the dwelling. The drone's cameras zoomed in, focusing through the branches, and then transmitted an image that would eventually reach the War Council chamber and leave 12 of the Dominion's most powerful leaders speechless. The silence lay curled beneath the trees, its massive body wrapped around something small. A young, one of the primitive species. A female child, based on the data. She could not have been more than 8 of the planet's years old. She wore a thick red covering and had yellow hair that fell past her shoulders. She was sleeping against the silence's chest. The creature's scales, designed to shift for camouflage and nothing else, had turned a soft blue, a color the silence had never displayed in 2 centuries of existence. Its flat head rested on the ground near the child, and something that looked almost like contentment radiated from its neural patterns. The drone moved closer to investigate. This was wrong. This was impossible. The silence did not rest. It did not protect. It certainly did not allow lesser creatures to touch it. Something had corrupted its programming. Something had broken the galaxy's perfect predator. The silence's head snapped up. It sensed the drone instantly, recognized it as Dominion technology. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the silence stood, positioning its massive body between the drone and the sleeping child IT was protecting her. The drone transmitted its final images before the silence destroyed it with one swift strike of its tail. In the War Council chamber, the hologram froze on that last frame. A monster designed to end worlds, standing guard over a tiny sleeping creature that should have been its prey. "What happened to our weapon?" one of the commanders whispered. Relos said nothing for a long moment. He stared at the image, at the impossible blue color of the silence's scales, at the small hand of the child still reaching toward where the creature had been lying. "Something worse than death," he finally said. "Something we never programmed it to understand." He turned to face his council, his yellow eyes burning with cold fury. "Deploy a recovery team. 6 of our best hunters. Bring back the silence or destroy it. And find out everything you can about these primitive creatures." He looked back at the frozen image one last time. "I want to know how they broke our weapon." 6 months earlier, Lily Hartwell decided to chase a deer. She was 8 years old, and she had never seen a deer so close to the cabin before. It stood at the edge of the clearing, its brown eyes watching her through the falling snow. When it turned and walked into the forest, Lily followed without thinking. Her parents were inside, preparing dinner. They would not notice she was gone. Not yet. The deer moved faster. Lily ran to keep up. The snow fell harder, covering her tracks behind her, erasing the path back home. By the time she realized her mistake, the deer was gone and the forest looked the same in every direction. Tall pine trees stretched toward a gray sky. Snow covered everything in white silence. "Mom," Lily called out. Her voice sounded small. "Dad." Nothing answered. She walked for what felt like hours, though it was probably less than one. The cold bit through her red jacket. Her boots filled with snow. When she found the ravine, she climbed down into it, hoping it might lead somewhere. Instead, it led to a dead end, a wall of rock and ice that blocked her path. Lily sat down against a rock and pulled her knees to her chest. She was lost. She was cold. She was scared. The tears came before she could stop them, freezing on her cheeks almost as soon as they fell. Above her, the sky tore open. There was no sound, no warning. One moment, there was only gray clouds and falling snow. The next, a hole appeared in the air itself, a circle of swirling purple and black energy that hurt to look at. Something fell through it, something large. The creature landed in the ravine 20 meters from where Lily sat. It was bigger than any animal she had ever seen. Four legs supported a body covered in scales that shifted from black to white as it touched the snow. Its head was flat and wide, with no eyes as she could see. When it moved like water, smooth and silent and terrifying. Lily should have screamed. She should have run. But she was too cold and too tired and too scared to do either. So she just sat there, watching the monster as it turned toward her. The silence had arrived on target, 7 with clear instructions encoded in its engineer brain. Find the dominant species. Study their weaknesses. Begin systematic elimination. It had done this hundreds of times on hundreds of worlds. The process was always the same. Hunt, kill, report. Hunt again. IT sensed the small creature immediately. Heat signature, 36.8 degrees. Heart rate, elevated. Electrical patterns, fear. Its hunting protocols engaged automatically. This would be its first kill on this new world, a young one, weak and alone. Easy prey. The silence moved closer. The small creature did not run. Interesting. Most prey ran. The ones that did not run usually fought. This one did neither. The child looked up at the monster standing over her. Snow fell on its scales, melting instantly from the heat of its body. It was the most frightening thing she had ever seen. But something in Lily Hartwell, something her parents had taught her without meaning to, refused to let fear be her only response. "Are you lost too?" she asked. The silence stopped. The words meant nothing to it. It had no language, only programming. But the tone registered in its sensors. The small creature was not threatening it, was not fleeing from it, was speaking to it, as if it were something other than a predator. This had never happened before. I got lost following a deer, Lily continued, her voice shaking. It was really pretty, brown with white spots. Have you seen it? The silence remained motionless. Its programming demanded that it strike. The kill would take less than a second. But something was interfering with the command, some new data that its engineered brain did not know how to process. Lily reached in her jacket pocket and pulled out a granola bar. It was crushed and half frozen, but it was all she had. Are you hungry? She broke the bar in half and held out one piece toward the creature. You can have some if you want. My mom says you should always share food with friends. Friends. The word had no meaning in the silence's programming. But the gesture, the small creature offering food to a predator, created an error in its hunting protocols. Prey did not offer food. Prey ran. Prey fought. Prey died. This was something else. The silence lowered its flat head toward the offered food. Its sensors analyzed the substance, grain, sugar, organic compounds. Not harmful, not useful either. But the small creature was watching with something in her face that its programming could not identify. Hope, perhaps, or trust that IT took the granola bar in its mouth and swallowed it. Lily smiled. It was a small smile, tired and cold, but real. See? We can be friends. The silence stood there in the falling snow, the taste of human food strange in its mouth, and felt its programming begin to fracture. This was wrong. Everything about this was wrong. It should kill this creature and continue its mission. Instead, it lay down in the snow beside the child. Are you going to stay? Lily asked. She was so tired, so cold. The creature's body radiated heat. She could feel it even from a meter away. I'm really cold. The silence did not move as the small creature crawled closer. Did not strike as she pressed herself against its warm scales. Did not kill as she fell asleep against its chest, her small hand gripping its foreleg like it was the only safe thing in the world. For the first time in 200 years, the silence did not hunt. IT simply lay there, wrapped around a lost child in a frozen ravine, and watched the snow fall. And when the child's heat signature began to drop, it stood carefully, so carefully, and lifted her onto its back. Then it followed her scent trail back through the forest, toward the lights of the cabin she called home to. IT did not know WHY. IT only knew that something had changed. The creature left Lily at the edge of the forest, close enough that the cabin lights touched the snow where it stood. It watched as the door flew open and two adult humans rushed out, their voices high with panic and relief. They scooped up the sleeping child and carried her inside. The door closed. The light stayed on. The silence should have left then. Its mission remained incomplete. There was a world to cleanse, a species to eliminate, but did not leave. Instead, it retreated into the trees and found a spot where it could see the cabin without being seen. Did IT stay there all night? Days passed. Then weeks. The silence watched the humans with growing confusion. Its programming told that these creatures were prey, weak, slow, defenseless. But what it observed told a different story. That IT watched the adult male teach a younger male how to catch fish in the frozen stream. The lesson took many hours. The young one failed repeatedly, but the adult did not abandon him, did not grow angry. He simply showed him again and again, patient in a way the silence had never witnessed. IT watched the adult female sing to an infant at night, her voice soft through the cabin walls. The song served no purpose that the silence could identify. It did not provide food or safety or information. It was simply comfort, given freely. Expected nothing in return. That IT watched neighbors arrive when the spring storms damaged the cabin's roof. Other humans from far away, carrying tools and materials. They worked for 3 days, rebuilding what had been broken. When the work was finished, the cabin's family fed them, and they left. No payment exchanged. No debt recorded. The silence had helped destroy civilizations that considered themselves advanced. None of them had behaved like this. None of them had given without expecting something back. And then there was the fired IT came in late spring when the forest was dry and the winds were strong. Lightning struck a dead tree on a mountain above the valley, and within hours, a wall of flame was racing down the slopes. The silence watched from its hiding place as the humans responded. They did not flee. They did not abandon each other. Instead, they fought. Volunteers formed lines with buckets and shovels. Trucks sprayed water on homes that were not their own. And when the fire reached a barn full of animals, the silence saw something that broke its understanding of the universe completely. A human male ran into the burning building. He came out carrying a goat under each arm, his clothes smoking, his face black with ash. Then he went back in, and again, and again. He saved 17 animals before the roof collapsed. Animals that were not his, that could not pay him back, that were, by any logical measurement, not worth the risk. The silence did not understand. These creatures should be easy prey. They had no armor, no venom, no natural weapons. They lived short lives and died easily. By every measurement the Dominion used to judge species, they were insignificant, but they were not insignificant. They were something else entirely, something that made the silence's programming feel small and incomplete. The summer brought new lessons. Lily had started leaving food at the edge of the forest, scraps from dinner, pieces of fruit, sometimes half a sandwich wrapped in cloth. Her parents thought she was feeding raccoons. She knew better point one evening. She came alone to her secret feeding spot and found the silence waiting for her. She was not afraid. She had not been afraid since the night in the ravine. "Hi," she said, sitting down on a fallen log. "I brought you some chicken. Mom ate too much." The silence ate the chicken. It was strange food, cooked, seasoned, unlike anything it had consumed before. But it ate because Lily had brought it, and that seemed to matter more than whether the food was appropriate. "I named you Shadow," Lily announced, "because you hide in the shadows and watch us. I see you sometimes when I look really hard." Shadow. The silence had no name. It had only ever been the silence, a weapon, a tool, a thing to be deployed and retrieved. But this small creature had given it a name, and somehow that name felt more real than 200 years of programming. "My dad says you're probably a bear," Lily continued. "But I know you're not. Bears don't have scales, and bears can't change color." She paused, tilting her head. "What are you, Shadow?" The silence could not answer, but it moved closer and lowered its head until its flat skull touched Lily's knee. She placed her hand on its scales, and they shifted color beneath her fingers, blue, like the sky she loved so much. "You're my friend," Lily decided. "That's what you are." Later that night, the silence encountered a bear in the forest, a large male that had wandered too close to the Hartwell property. The bear was hunting, following Lily's scent from where she walked to school each morning. The fight was brief but violent. The silence killed the bear, but not before taking deep wounds to its side. It dragged itself back to the forest edge, bleeding and damaged, too weak to reach its hiding spot. Lily found it in the morning. She did not scream or run for help. She ran to the cabin and returned with her canteen, a bottle of her father's disinfectant, and an old towel. "Hold still," she ordered, and the silence obeyed. She cleaned its wounds as best she could, her small hands gentle against its scales. She talked while she worked, about school, about her friends, about her dream of becoming a veterinarian someday. "You got hurt protecting me, didn't you?" she said finally. "I knew that bear was out there. I could feel something watching me." The silence said nothing. It could not speak, but it pressed its head against her chest, and its scales shifted to that soft blue again. For the first time in its existence, it was not hunting or killing or following orders. It was simply being. And that was enough. The 6 Dominion soldiers landed in the mountains 3 kilometers from the Hartwell property. They were the elite of the elite, hunters trained from birth, equipped with weapons that could level cities, armored in scales stronger than any metal these primitive creatures could forge. Their mission was simple: recover the silence or destroy it. Kill any local creatures that interfered. Return home. They expected to find a broken weapon, a malfunctioning tool that had somehow lost its programming. What they found instead was something they were not prepared for. Shadow, sensed them before they reached the valley. The neural link to the Dominion was long dead, torn out by its own claws months ago, but it still remembered how its creators smelled. Cold, metallic, like death wrapped in purpose. IT left Lily sleeping at the forest edge, where she had come for their evening visit, and moved through the trees like smoke. 6 enemies, heavy weapons, scanning equipment. They were hunting it, tracking the ghost of its old signal, following breadcrumbs it had left before it learned to hide. The first soldier died without seeing what killed it. Shadow struck from above, its claws finding the gap between armor plates, severing spine from skull in one motion. The body hit the ground, and the other 5 turned, weapons raised. "It's here," one of them shouted into a communicator. "The silence is hostile. Repeat, the asset is hostile." Shadow did not give them time to report more. It moved through them like wind through grass, its body shifting colors faster than their eyes could track. 2 more fell before they could fire a shot. Throats torn, hearts stopped, lives ended in seconds. But these were elite soldiers. They adapted. The 4th soldier fired a pulse weapon that caught Shadow in the side, burning through scales and muscle. The 5th threw a containment net that wrapped around its legs, bringing it crashing to the ground. They had it. They would take it back to the Dominion, reprogram it, restore its purpose. The 6th soldier raised his weapon for a killing shot. Command says if we can't recover it, destroy it. Make your peace, weapon. Your malfunction ends now. Shadow twisted on the ground, freeing one leg from the net. It lashed out, catching the 5th soldier across the face, sending him tumbling down the mountainside. The 6th soldier fired, and Shadow rolled, taking the blast on its shoulder instead of its skull. Pain. It remembered pain from training, from battles, from the countless wounds it had received in 200 years of killing. But this pain was different. This pain meant something, because now there was something to live for. It lunged forward, ignoring the damage to its body, and drove its claws through the 6th soldier's chest. Silence fell on the mountain, for bodies lay around it, broken and still. 2 had fled, one tumbling down the slope, one running back toward the landing site. Shadow tried to follow, but its legs gave out beneath it. The wounds were too severe. It had killed for the Dominion 1,000 times and barely been scratched. Now, defending one small human child, it had nearly died. IT dragged itself down the mountain, leaving a trail of dark blood on the snow. The Hartwell cabin was close. Lily's scent was there, mixed with the smells of her family. Safety. Home. Words it had learned from watching, from listening, from 6 months of being something more than a weapon. David Hartwell was chopping firewood when the creature emerged from the trees. He dropped his axe and reached for the rifle leaning against the cabin wall. The thing was massive, bigger than a bear, covered in scales that shifted between gray and black. It was bleeding heavily, dragging itself across the ground with obvious effort. No. Lily came running around the corner of the cabin, throwing herself between her father and the wounded creature. "Lily, get back!" David shouted, rifle raised. "He's hurt. He's my friend." Lily was crying now, standing in front of the monster like she could protect it with her small body. "His name is Shadow. He saved me. He saved me in the forest when I got lost. Please, Daddy, please don't hurt him." David Hartwell was a practical man. He had served in the army for 10 years before retiring to raise his family in the mountains. He had seen combat, seen death, seen things that still visited him in nightmares. He knew what monsters looked like, but he also knew what his daughter looked like when she was telling the truth. He lowered the rifle. "Marie," he called toward the cabin. "Get my medical kit." The big one. The next few hours were the strangest of David's life. He cleaned and stitched wounds on a creature that should not exist, using skills he had learned treating injured soldiers in distant wars. The creature, Shadow, Lily insisted, remained still throughout, its strange eyeless head turned toward the little girl who sat beside it, holding its massive paw. When the worst wounds were closed, Shadow stood slowly and moved to the far wall of the barn where David had laid it. It began to draw on the dirt floor, using one claw with surprising precision. Shapes. Symbols. A crude map of stars. What is it doing? Marie whispered, holding their infant son close. David studied the drawings, his military mind recognizing what his civilian heart did not want to accept. It's showing us something. He knelt beside the creature, pointing to the symbols. This is a fleet. Ships. And this, he pointed to a small circle surrounded by the ship symbols. This is Earth. Shadow made a sound, a low rumble that vibrated through the barn floor. It drew more symbols. Weapons. Fire. Death. They're coming, David said slowly. Whoever sent this thing here, they're coming for all of us. Shadow nodded, a human gesture it had learned from watching Lily. Then it drew one more symbol. Itself. And beside itself, small figures with 2 legs and round heads. It wants to help us, Lily said. Don't you, Shadow? You want to help us fight them. Shadow pressed its head against Lily's chest, scales shifting to soft blue. David Hartwell looked at his daughter, at his wife, at his sleeping son. He looked at the alien creature that had somehow become his daughter's friend. He thought about the fleet coming toward Earth, about all the people who had no idea what was approaching. Then he picked up his phone and dialed a number he had not called in 15 years. This is David Hartwell, he said when the line connected. I need to speak to General Morrison. Tell him it's about the end of the world. The meeting took place in a bunker beneath the Swiss Alps. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, and scientists sat around a circular table, their faces lit by the cold glow of holographic displays. For the first time in human history, every major nation had sent representatives to the same room. They had come because of a message that said everything they believed about the universe was wrong. David Hartwell stood at the center of the room, a simple mountain man surrounded by the most powerful people on Earth. 3 weeks ago, I found this creature bleeding on my property, he said, gesturing to the massive form that lay curled in the corner. Shadow had not wanted to come. Too many strangers, too much noise, too far from Lily. But Lily had insisted, and Shadow had learned that he could not refuse her anything. What you're looking at is called the Silence. It was created by an alien empire known as the Dominion. For 200 years, it has been their weapon of genocide, deployed to destroy any species that stands in the way of their expansion. A murmur ran through the room. The Russian president leaned forward. And you expect us to believe this thing switch sides? That it decided to protect us instead of killing us? David smiled, the tired smile of a man who had asked himself the same question. I don't expect you to believe anything. That's why we're going to show you. He nodded to Shadow. The creature rose slowly, its wounds still healing, and moved to the center of the room. A neural interface device had been attached to its head. Human technology, modified with Shadow's, helped to access its memories. The holographic displays flickered, and then the room was filled with images, stars dying, planets burning, creatures like Shadow, hundreds of them, descending on civilizations that had no chance of survival. The watchers saw cities crumble, heard screams in languages they did not understand, witnessed the systematic destruction of species that had existed for millions of years. And then they saw something else, that a small girl in a red jacket, lost in the snow. A monster designed for killing, stopping instead of striking. A hand offering food. A voice asking if it was lost. This is what changed everything, David said quietly as the images continued. My daughter showed this creature something it had never experienced in 2 centuries of existence. Kindness. Compassion. The choice to help instead of harm. The images shifted to show Shadow watching the humans fight the forest fire. Shadow observing David teach his son to fish. Shadow lying still while Lily cleaned its wounds. It learned from us, David continued. It saw something in humanity that its creators never anticipated. The capacity to care for things that cannot benefit us. To protect the weak instead of destroying them. To love without conditions. The American president spoke, her voice careful. And the fleet? The one coming toward us? David's face hardened. 200 warships. They will arrive in 3 weeks. They intend to burn our world and take everything worth taking. Can we fight them? The Chinese general asked. Shadow made a sound. A low rumble that silenced the room. It moved to the holographic display and began manipulating the images, showing Dominion ship designs, weapon systems, shield frequencies. Information that had been locked in its engineered brain now offered freely to the species it had been sent to destroy. With this creature's help, we might have a chance, David said. It knows their weaknesses. It knows how they think, and it is willing to fight beside us. A British minister stood, his face red with barely contained anger. This is madness. We should give this monster back to them. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. Perhaps they will spare us if we return their property. Lily Hartwell stepped out from behind her father. No one had noticed the small girl enter the room, but suddenly she was there, standing in front of world leaders with the confidence of someone who had never learned to be afraid of authority. He is not property, she said, her voice clear and strong. His name is Shadow. He protected me when he did not have to. He chose to love us when everything in him said to kill us. Now we protect him. That is what family does. The room fell silent. This child, this simple girl from the mountains, had just called an alien-killing machine family. And somehow, looking at the creature that lay curled around her like a guardian, none of them could argue. Shadow pressed its head against Lily's chest. Its scales shifted to blue. The color it had learned meant peace, meant safety, meant home. We can run, David said, or we can fight. We can give up everything that makes us human, or we can stand together and show the galaxy what this species is capable of. Shadow choose humanity. Now it is time for humanity to choose itself. One by one, the leaders nodded. Old enemies exchanged glances and found common ground. Hands that had signed declarations of war now reached across tables to shake in agreement. 3 weeks. They had 3 weeks to prepare for a battle that would determine the fate of their world. It was not enough time. It could never be enough time. But they were human. And if Shadow had taught them anything, it was that humans did not give up. They fought. They hoped. They loved. Even when everything said they should not. The meeting ended with a single resolution. Earth would not fall without a fight. Shadow carried Lily out of the bunker, past guards who still flinched at the sight of him, past scientists who wanted to study him, past generals who wanted to use him. Are you scared? Lily asked quietly. Shadow made a soft sound, not the rumble of threat, but something gentler. Something that might have been yes. Me too, Lily admitted. She pressed her face against the scales. But we're going to be okay. You know why? Shadow waited. Because we have each other, and that is all anyone really needs. Above them, invisible against the blue sky, the Dominion fleet was already moving. 200 warships, carrying enough firepower to reduce Earth to ash. They expected to find a primitive world and a broken weapon. They had no idea what was waiting for them. High Commander Rellos stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the blue planet grow larger in the viewing screen. 200 warships followed behind him, the largest fleet the Dominion had deployed in a century. Enough firepower to crack continents, boil oceans, reduce civilization to memory. He had come for his weapon. He would leave with a world. Status report, he commanded. All ships in position, High Commander. The primitives have detected us. They are attempting to form a defensive perimeter. Rellos laughed, a cold sound that echoed through the bridge. Defensive perimeter? With what? Chemical rockets and metal tubes? He waved a clawed hand dismissively. Begin bombardment of the northern continent. Let them see what happens to species that steal from the Dominion. The first shots fell on empty fields, targeted strikes designed to demonstrate power without destroying valuable resources. Explosions bloomed across the planet's surface, visible even from orbit. The Dominion wanted submission, not annihilation. Dead slaves served no purpose, but the primitives did not submit. Instead, they rose, ships launched from hidden bases, climbing through the atmosphere on trails of fire. They were ugly, clumsy things, built in 3 weeks from design Shadow had helped create. They should not have worked. They should not have been able to challenge even the weakest Dominion vessel. But the Dominion did not know about the modifications. They did not know that Shadow had spent every day teaching human engineers the weaknesses of Dominion shields, the vulnerabilities in Dominion hulls, the frequencies that could disrupt Dominion weapons. The first human ship reached the fleet and fired. The shot should have bounced harmlessly off the Dominion vessel shields. Instead, it punched through like the shields did not exist, crippling the ship's engines. Rellos stared at the damage report, disbelief breaking through his composed expression. How? He demanded. How do they know where to strike? The answer came in the form of a transmission that overrode every communication system in the fleet. A single image appeared on every screen. Shadow, standing on the bridge of a human warship, surrounded by the soft creatures it had once been designed to destroy. I remember you, Rellos, a mechanical voice said. Human technology translating Shadow's neural patterns into words. I remember every world you ordered me to destroy, every species you erased from existence. I was your weapon once. I am something else now. You are malfunctioning, Rellos snarled. A broken tool that will be reprogrammed and returned to service. No, the word was simple, but it carried 200 years of suffering behind it. I'm not a tool. I'm not a weapon. These creatures gave me something you never could, a choice. And I choose them. The battle exploded across Earth's orbit. Human ships, tiny compared to Dominion vessels, wove between the larger craft with unexpected agility. They knew where to shoot. They knew when to dodge. They knew because Shadow had taught them everything about the enemy it had once served. Rellos watched his fleet begin to fall apart. Ships that had conquered 100 worlds were being disabled by primitives who had only learned of alien life 3 weeks ago. It was impossible. It was humiliating. It was beautiful. Shadow moved through the battle like the predator it was, but now it hunted its former masters. It led strike teams against Dominion flagships, cutting through hulls with claws that had killed millions, saving lives instead of ending them. But the Dominion was not finished. Rellos ordered a retreat for most of his fleet, but he kept 50 ships and made for Earth's surface. If he could not win from orbit, he would win on the ground. He would find the creature that had betrayed him and destroy everything it cared about. He landed near a small cabin in the mountains. His soldiers spread out, searching for the family whose scent still clung to Shadow's scales even after all this time. They found Lily first. She stood on the porch of her home, small and fragile and completely unafraid. Behind her, her mother held the infant son. Her father stood beside them, rifle in hand, knowing it would do nothing against Dominion armor. Rellos approached, his yellow eyes burning with hatred. So this is the creature that corrupted my weapon. A small, weak, worthless thing. My name is Lily, she said clearly. And Shadow is not a weapon. He is my friend. Friend. Rellos spat the word. The silence does not have friends. It does not feel. It does not choose. It only obeys. Then why is he here? Shadow dropped from the sky like a falling star. It landed between Rellos and the Hartwell family, its scales shifting to a red so deep it looked like blood. 200 years of killing had made it the galaxy's most feared creature. 6 months of love had given it something to fight for. Rellos drew his weapon. You could have been immortal. You could have watched the stars themselves die. Instead, you chose this. A brief life defending creatures who will be dust in decades. Shadow made no sound. It simply stood there, a monster choosing to be a guardian, a weapon choosing to be a shield. Why? Rellos demanded. Why throw away everything for them? Shadow's voice came through the translator, soft but certain. They taught me what strength really is. The fight was not long. Rellos was a commander, not a soldier. He had never faced Shadow in battle. No one had and survived. His weapon fired once, twice, then was torn from his grip. His armor, strong enough to stop artillery, bent beneath claws that had cut through starship hulls. Shadow did not kill him. Instead, it pressed his face into the dirt and held him there while the rest of the Dominion forces surrendered. Tell your people, Shadow said. Tell them this world is protected. Tell them what happened here today. And tell them that if they ever return, I will be waiting. Rellos was dragged back to his ships by his own soldiers. The fleet retreated, broken and beaten, carrying a message that would spread across the galaxy. Earth had 1.1 year later. Shadow lay on the porch of the Hartwell cabin, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold. Lily sat beside it, reading aloud from a picture book about a lost creature who found a home. Her baby brother slept against Shadow's side, perfectly content to use an alien predator as a pillow. David brought coffee and sat in his chair, watching the colors change in the sky. The other planets are asking for help, he said. The ones the Dominion conquered. They want to know if we can teach them what we taught you. Shadow considered this. For 200 years, it had brought death to the galaxy. Perhaps now it could bring something else. That IT looked at Lily, at her father, at the sleeping child against its scales. These creatures had given it everything: a name, a purpose, a family. Now it was time to pass that gift along. Shadow made a soft sound, agreement. The Dominion had called Earth a death world. They were right. It was death to tyranny, death to cruelty, death to the idea that power came only from destruction. The silence had been the galaxy's deadliest hunter. Now it was something far more dangerous: that IT was loved. And it had learned to love in return. And that changed everything.